I realized my free training session was a setup when my trainer locked the sauna from the outside. The sound was the tell, that hard metal slide like a deadbolt, not some flimsy latch. My hand hit the handle on reflex, and it didn't give, and right away my brain went, oh, I'm not in a gym right now. I'm in a box with a stranger deciding what happens next. I met him through a gym subreddit, of all places. I'd posted a shaky, squat clip asking for form checks, and he'd med like he was doing me a favor. Said he worked at a local gym, said he could fix my depth and knee cave in one session, said it'd be free if I just mentioned his name at the desk. He dropped little details that felt legit: hours, equipment, a manager's first name. So I stopped questioning it. When I got there, it was late enough that the parking lot looked half empty. Front desk was two kids in black polos, bored chewing gum. I said his name and watched their faces because I didn't want to be the idiot who got lured into some random building by a Reddit DM. The kid nodded like they knew him and pointed toward the floor without even asking questions. That nod mattered. It made my guard drop. A minute later, he walked up with a lanyard and a clipboard and that practice smile, like he'd done this 1,000 times. Session went normal at first. Warm up, bands, a few sets to see where I'm at. He talked nonstop. Not friendly talk, just coaching talk, like he needed noise to stay in charge. The first cues were fine. Then he got handsy. He didn't tap or point. He grabbed. He pressed both palms into my hips from behind and held them there while I moved, like I was a mannequin. He adjusted my knees with both hands and kept his fingers there a beat too long. He leaned in close enough that his breath hit my ear when he corrected me. And I remember thinking, why is he so close? Why is this the only way he knows how to coach? I tried to set a boundary without making it a scene. I shrugged him off and said I could feel the cue. He laughed like I was being cute and told me to trust the process. When I told him to use words instead of hands, his smile tightened and he hit me with that tone that makes you feel stupid for speaking up. He asked if I always get defensive when corrected. I said no, I just don't like being grabbed. He acted like I'd accused him of a crime, like I was the problem for noticing. After that, he got colder, more clipped, like he decided I owed him compliance for the free session. By the time we finished, the gym had thinned out. The music dipped. People wiped down and stopped lingering. I saw the clock and realized it was close to closing, and I felt that push in my gut to leave. Instead, he said we should cool down in the sauna, helps recovery. I said I was fine, I'd stretch at home. He smiled and said serious clients don't skip recovery work. And he added, like advice, that distractions ruin progress. He kept repeating commitment like it was a password. I told him I didn't bring a towel. I didn't even shower at the gym. He waved it off and started walking like it was decided. I followed because I hated the idea of being the person who makes a scene, and I hate that about myself. Back there, the lights buzz, and everything smells like old soap and sweat. The sauna door was heavy wood with a narrow window already fogged. He held it open like a gentleman, and I stepped in anyway, still in my gym clothes because I figured I'd sit for a minute and bounce. It was empty. The benches were hot enough to sting. I sat on the top bench because that's what people do, right? Quick sweat out. My phone was in my pocket, already slick. He stayed by the door, half in the doorway, talking about serious clients and commitment like he was giving a sermon. Then the door shut. Heavy. I heard the bolt hit. From the outside. For a second, I just stood there with my mouth open, like my body didn't want to believe what my ears heard. The heat didn't bother me. The silence did. The normal gym noise got muffled instantly, like the world got stuffed behind a wall. I grabbed the handle and yanked it once, then again harder. Nothing. No wobble. Just locked. He was right there on the other side of the glass, staring in. He tapped it, smile flat, and said through it that distractions ruined progress, that if I wrote it out, he'd let me out in 20 minutes. Like he'd time my suffering. My chest went cold under the heat. I cursed at him and demanded he open it. He didn't flinch. He did a little shrug, like I was the one being unreasonable. I went straight for the emergency alarm pull on the wall, the little red handle with a faded label. I yanked it hard. Nothing. No sound, no light, no click. I yanked again until my shoulder hurt. Still nothing. The handle on the alarm had that loose, dead feel, like it wasn't connected to anything. I yanked it until my forearm cramped, and then I smacked the wall beside it because I needed something to respond. He watched with this lazy patience, and that was the worst part, like he wasn't even risking anything. I put my ear to the door and tried to listen for footsteps, for a mop bucket, for any sign the building still had people in it. All I got was my own breathing and the hiss of heat. He watched me do it, and his face didn't change. And that's when I understood he'd already unplugged it. That's when panic hit for real. Not movie panic. The kind where your hands go numb and your brain starts throwing images at you like they're facts. I remember looking at his hands and thinking about how easy it would be for him to just walk away. He didn't have to touch me to hurt me. He could just leave me there and call a lesson. My throat got tight, and I started tasting metal like my body was already bracing for something worse than heat. The gym closing, staff leaving, me locked in here until I pass out, and then him coming back when it's quiet. I try my phone. The screen smeared with sweat. My fingerprint wouldn't read because my thumb was wet. I wiped it on my shirt, got it open, tried calling, but it wouldn't connect, or I had no signal, or my fingers were too stupid from adrenaline. The heat made my head feel thick. Sweat ran into my eyes, and I blinked hard, trying not to cry because crying felt like giving him what he wanted. I started banging on the door with both fists and yelling for staff anyway. My voice sounded wrong in there, swallowed, and bounced back at me. Nobody came. He just stood there calm, watching like he was testing how long I'd beg. So I stopped playing nice. I stopped wasting energy on the handle and looked for anything I could break. The lower wall had wood paneling. I started kicking it. First kick lit up my shin. Second kick cracked something. Third kick made the panel flex and spit out a splinter. I kept going until a slat snapped loose and I could get my fingers under it. I yanked it free and it tore out with a nasty pop, nails squealing. I swung that broken slat at the glass next to his face. The glass didn't explode, but it spiderwebbed fast with this high, violent squeal. He flinched back for the first time all night. I hit it again, and he backed up another step, hands up like I was the threat now. That tiny retreat broke the spell. Down the hallway, I saw heads turn. A guy in a towel froze. Someone stopped mid-step. Staff rushed over, saw the bolt, saw his face. One of them grabbed the handle, tried it, and you could see the moment it didn't move. The other staff kid stared at the bolt, and then at him like he'd grown a second head. They slid the bolt, the door opened, and cooler air hit me like a slap. One of the staff said my name off the intake sheet and asked if I was okay, and I snapped that I was locked in there on purpose. They made the room go quiet in that sharp way. I pointed at the unplugged alarm and the cracked glass, and I told him to check it, to touch it, to stop letting him talk. I stumbled out drenched and shaking, and I shoved past him and told everyone exactly what the fuck he'd done. He tried to talk over me, tried to keep that coach voice, tried to make me sound dramatic. He swore I misunderstood the drill. Phones came out. The towel guys started yelling at him. Someone told the front desk to get a manager. They pulled him toward the office, and he kept glancing back at me. Not scared, just measuring like he was already building a story where he was the victim and I was the crazy one. I left without showering. I sat in my car with the doors locked and my hands still shaking, and I hated how my body kept replaying that bolt sound. The next day I called the gym and told the manager everything again. They said they had cameras. They asked for the messages he sent me. I sent screenshots. His employment status changed the next week. To the guy who tested how long I'd sit in a lockbox for him, you found my limit. Let's not meet. The man on my commute boards, whatever bus, lets him watch my screen in the reflection. I take different routes to work depending on timing. Doesn't matter. Morning, evening, express, or local. If there's a window opposite me, he's in the seat that lines our reflections up. I only caught it because I switched sides one day. Sat on the left instead of the right. 2 stops later, there he was moving down the aisle, ignoring empty seats, waiting until he could see my phone in the glass. He never looks at me. He stares at the window like he's spacing out, eyes just off focus enough that I can see what he's actually locked on. The tiny mirror version of whatever app I'm on. At first, I tried to talk myself down. People are nosy. People are bored. Maybe he was just staring through glass like it was a TV. So I did the simplest check. I lowered my phone. His eyes dropped. I raised it. His eyes climbed. I tilted the screen away. He shifted, barely, until the reflection snapped back into his line. I tested it. I opened banking, then closed it, then pretended to scroll, nothing with the screen dark. His gaze flicked, annoyed when the glow cut. That annoyed part hit me harder than the spying. Like I'd taken something from him. Like the light belonged to him, and I was being rude by turning it off. The next morning I sat near the front, thinking I'd break the pattern. Different bus, different crowd, different driver who always played talk radio too loud. Didn't matter. He wasn't on when I boarded. That was the first sick twist. He didn't share a commute with me. He joined it. 2 stops after I sat down, he got on, drifted down the aisle, and waited until the seat that lined our reflections up opened. Then he sat like he'd been assigned there. Same boots, same plain jacket, same empty hands. No earbuds, no book, no phone, just his eyes parked on the glass. By the end of that week, I stopped using my phone for anything fun. I only used it because I had to, emails from work, a text from my partner, checking the time so I wouldn't miss my stop. And every time the screen lit, he locked on. He didn't even pretend to glance away when people moved around. He tracked the reflection like a laser. I tried a privacy screen filter because that's what the internet tells you to do. It made my phone dark unless you were right in front of it. I thought I'd won. He leaned a few degrees and hunted the reflection anyway, using the window like a periscope. When it didn't give him enough, he didn't give up. He got tighter. His jaw worked. His eyes narrowed. He started watching my hands instead, waiting for the moment I'd type something real. I realized then it wasn't about seeing memes. It was about catching the pieces of me that live behind glass. One evening, I tried to catch him in a way that would make him flinch. I lifted my phone like I was taking a selfie and let the front camera stare straight at the reflection. The second the lens pointed his way, he didn't panic. He just angled his head a hair so the camera got ear and cheek. Nothing usable. No sudden movements, no drama, like he'd practiced that too. I felt this hot rush of anger because even my attempt to document him got folded into his control. I told the bus driver the next day, quick and low, like I was confessing something gross. He barely looked at me. He said if the guy isn't harassing me, there's not much he can do, and then he told me to take a seat because he had a schedule. I sat down shaking. A woman across the aisle gave me that look like I was the problem stirring up trouble at 7 in the morning, like I'd chosen this for attention. When the guy got on, the woman actually scoffed under her breath like I'd been caught lying. He walked right past her, past open seats, and took his little reflection throne. She didn't scoff then. She just stared forward, suddenly fascinated by a smudge on the floor. That's what people do. They don't want to see it until it happens to them. I told a coworker in the break room, and she laughed like I'd told her a story about a bad barista. She said everyone peeks. I said peeking is a glance. This is a routine. We snapped at each other over the stupid coffee machine like it was personal. She told me to stop being dramatic. I told her she'd change her tune if it was her phone and her bank and her family text floating in a window for some asshole to read. She walked off, and I sat there with my heart beating like I just run. At home it got worse because my partner tried to solve it instead of hearing it. They said, don't use your phone. Sit somewhere else. Change your route. I said I already did. I said I'm allowed to exist without shrinking my whole day around a stranger's creep hobby. We fought in that tight, mean tone couples get when they're both scared but only one of them admits it. They kept asking what the guy actually did. I kept saying he's doing it right now, every day, and you want me to wait until he puts a hand on me before it counts. So I changed routes. I took the local, then the express, then the one that drops me 3 blocks away. I got off early and walked in the cold. I waited for later buses. I swapped the time I left work and ate dinner like garbage because I didn't want to be on the same schedule. He still showed up. Sometimes not the same day, but always soon. And the pattern stayed the same. He'd appear after I'd already boarded, like he was patrolling the line, and he'd move only when the reflection lined up. One morning, I swapped my phone for a dead one, screen black, and held it like normal while the real one stayed in my bag recording. I kept my face neutral and did the fake scroll thing, thumb moving over nothing. When he got on, after me again, he floated down the aisle, ignored open seats, and sat where the window behind me turned my hands into a display. Only this time, the glow never came. Video caught him craning his neck, trying to catch a glow that wasn't there. He leaned forward, leaned back, tilted his head like a bird. He lifted his hand once like he wanted to block glare, then stopped himself and dropped it back into his lap. When the screen stayed dead, his mouth tightened and he exhaled through his nose, pissed off in this quiet, controlled way that made my skin prickle. He wasn't embarrassed. He was frustrated, like a mechanic staring at an engine that wouldn't start. I watched that clip until I felt sick. Proof didn't help. Proof just meant I couldn't pretend anymore. I took it to transit cops because I didn't know what else to do besides start screaming at strangers. Transit cops gave me the no crime yet speech. They said riding the bus isn't illegal. They said looking isn't illegal. They said if he hasn't threatened me or touched me, there's not much they can do. I argued until my throat hurt. I told them he's following me across routes. I told them he's trying to see banking and passwords and private messages. I told them this is escalation in slow motion. One officer's face went flat, and he told me to calm down. Another step closer, like I was the problem. I walked away shaking and furious, like I'd asked permission to be scared and got told I hadn't earned it. After that, I stopped using my phone on the bus completely. I stare at my own knees. I counted stops. I pretended I didn't notice him. It didn't make him leave. It made him hover. Without the glow, he watched my hands instead, eyes flicking every time I moved my bag. If I pulled out a receipt, he leaned. If I checked my watch, he leaned like he hoped it was a screen. Once I caught him watching me in the reflection for half a second, actual me, then he snapped back to the window like he'd broken some rule. The worst day was when my phone buzzed hard enough to feel through my coat, and I couldn't ignore it because it might have been work. I pulled it out for 1 second, unlocked it, saw an email subject line, locked it again. In that 1 second, his eyes jumped and his posture changed, sharp like a dog hearing a whistle. I wanted to throw the phone across the aisle and smash it just to see if he'd flinch. Then it started leaking into everything. I'd walk to the stop and scan faces. I'd sit in restaurants and avoid windows behind me. I'd angle my laptop at home so I wasn't reflected in the dark TV screen. I hated that he'd rewritten my habits without ever touching me. So I stopped trying to hide. I stopped trying to outsmart schedules. I stopped giving the system neat little details it could file under not enough. I sat where I wanted. I held my bag tight. I kept my keys between my fingers when I got off. And on the bus, I did the one thing he refused to do back. So now I sit with my back to the window and stare right at him. If he wants a show, he can fucking look me in the eyes. I found my landlord's incident folder on me and realized he'd been letting himself in for months. I only opened the drawer because the smoke alarm in the hallway wouldn't stop chirping, and he told me to grab the spare batteries from the file cabinet while he fixed something downstairs. That chirp had been chewing on my brain since before sunrise. I smacked the thing, pressed the button, swapped the battery I had, and it still kept yelling every 30 seconds. I texted him because in that building, if you didn't nag, nothing got done. He called back fast, irritated, and said he'd handle it. He showed up with boots and that key ring that always jingled. He didn't step into my unit, just hovered in the doorway, eyes flicking past me like he was checking what changed since last time. He said the alarm line ran through the panel downstairs and told me, casual as hell, to go to his office and grab batteries from the file cabinet. His office is a storage room off the lobby with a dented metal cabinet and a flickering light. I pulled the top drawer first. Leases. The second drawer resisted for a second, then slid out. That's where I saw it. A folder with my name on the tab in neat blue ink. Not my unit number. My name. I froze. I tried to tell myself it was normal paperwork. My hands didn't buy it. My throat tightened, but I pulled it out anyway. Inside, printed screenshots of my public Reddit posts about the building, my Instagram, a zoomed-in shot of my bedroom window from the alley. Copies of my late rent email, annotated. He'd highlighted my Reddit complaints, circled my username, scribbled dates like he was building a timeline. He'd printed my Instagram and written little notes beside photos. Out late. Drinks. New hair. One hat alone, underlined like it mattered. Then the alley photo. My bedroom window with the curtain not fully closed. I recognized my lamp in the corner of my bed. That shot wasn't online. Someone had stood by the dumpsters and aimed up into my room. I kept flipping and found my late rent email printed and marked up. I'd written it polite, almost begging for 2 extra days. On his copy, he underlined parts and wrote, "Apologizes, will fold, wants approval." My face went hot because he wasn't tracking rent, he was tracking how I bend. Then the photos from inside my apartment. My kitchen counter with yesterday's dishes. My couch with my bra on the arm. My bed with the sheet half off. My bathroom sink with my toothbrush cup. My front door from inside. Chain hanging loose. Different days, different light. One shot had my laundry basket half full. Another had my phone charger plugged in, like he'd stood there long enough to notice what I reach for at night. No maintenance reason on earth for that. My brain started snapping old moments into place. The shower curtain pulled back when I swore I left it closed. A window unlocked. My closet door not latched. That faint cologne smell in my hallway. I called it nothing because nothing lets you sleep. Then I saw handwriting on the backs. On the back of one he'd written, "Leaves door chain off most nights. Heavy sleeper." Another, "Keeps knife blocked by stove, right hand dominant." My mouth went dry, so fast my tongue stuck to my teeth. Heavy sleeper, like he'd tested it. And the knife block note made it worse because it wasn't curiosity. It was planning around what I could do to stop him. I slammed the folder shut, shoved everything back, jammed the drawer closed, and backed away from the cabinet. My hand shook so hard the paper edges buzzed. I didn't grab batteries. I didn't grab anything. I just grabbed my keys and walked out, trying to move like a normal tenant so nobody would look up and clock me. I could hear him clanking around downstairs, and I pictured him seeing my face, pushing me to explain. I didn't want to find out what he did when cornered, so I left the building with the smoke alarm still chirping behind me. Outside, my legs kept moving like they belonged to someone else. I called my friend with shaking hands and told her I was coming over. I didn't explain on the street. I kept glancing behind me like he'd appear with that key ring swinging. At my friend's place, I finally got the words out, and she went straight to fury. She wanted cops and confrontation. I argued because I didn't want a hallway showdown with a man who controlled the locks. She said I was letting him get away with it. I said I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to stay alive. That night, I barely slept on her couch. Every little sound snapped me awake. I kept seeing that blue ink tab when I closed my eyes. The next day, I had to go back for my stuff. I refused to go alone. My friend came with me, and I kept my phone in my hand, camera ready, like recording would protect me. I unlocked my door and checked the chain out habit, and that made me feel sick because the chain is on the inside, and he still knew exactly when I used it. I grabbed bags, threw clothes in without folding, yanked my laptop and chargers, scooped up mail and meds. I moved fast because the longer I stayed, the more my hands shook. Halfway through packing, the doorknob jiggled. Hard, not a neighbor bump, a deliberate twist. The deadbolt held, but the jiggle kept coming like whoever was out there expected it to open. Then keys scraped and clinked, that familiar sound, and the lock tried to turn and failed. I yanked the door open with my phone up. He stood there with his tool bag like he'd been summoned, face blank for a second before he slapped on that polite landlord smile. He started in on checking the alarm and making sure everything's okay. My friend told him to back the fuck up. He looked at my phone and told me I couldn't record him in his building like he owned the air. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes went hard. I didn't debate him. I shut the door in his face and locked it again, hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped my phone. We finished fast after that. I hauled bags down the stairs and didn't look at anyone. In the morning, I called the tenant hotline. I told them about the folder, the inside photos, the notes, and that he tried my door while I was packing. They said to document, to open a dialogue. They told me to request a lock change in writing. Their calm script made me feel like I was losing my mind. After that call, I sat on my friend's floor and tried to make a plan like a normal adult. I Googled legal aid, tenant rights, emergency lock changes. Everything turned into forms and fees. One lawyer's office told me their retainer started at more than my rent. Another told me, flat, that landlords usually win unless you have video of them entering. I stared at that and felt my stomach flip again because he'd already been inside enough to take pictures, and I still didn't have the kind of proof people respect. I kept thinking about the chain note. He didn't guess. He knew. He'd watched. That meant he'd been in there at night, not just daytime maintenance. That meant he'd stood close enough to tell if I woke up. I went back in my head and remembered nights where I slept so hard I didn't even hear the trash truck, and now those nights felt like I'd handed him a free pass. My friend wanted me to blast him online, name him, post the photos if I could get them. I snapped that I didn't even have the folder. I didn't have anything except memory and panic, and he had my full legal name and my address and a master key. Posting felt like poking a bear with a stick and then go to sleep in front of it. I deleted old posts anyway, scrubbed my socials, changed my usernames like that could rewind printed paper. He emailed me later about unauthorized occupants because my friend had been with me, like he was trying to paint me as the rule breaker. He also mentioned documenting incidents, which made my skin crawl because I could see that file drawer in my head. That's when I stopped thinking about rights and started thinking about exits. Meanwhile, he texted me like everything was normal, asking if the alarm stopped, then another text about access for maintenance, like he was building his own little paper trail. I didn't answer. I couldn't stay. I couldn't sleep in a place where the person with the keys had a dossier on my life. I broke my lease. I sent a short email saying I was leaving immediately due to unauthorized entry and harassment. He replied with threats about penalties and serious accusations, and how I'd regret it, like he was the victim. I didn't argue. I dropped the keys in an envelope and slid it under his office door without knocking. I just broke my lease and left. I still pay the fucking collections agency rather than argue. Sometimes I catch myself counting locks in other places, checking corners, hating my own silence. I paid to live somewhere and ended up being a file in a drawer. If a person who holds your keys also holds a dossier on your sleep habits, don't negotiate. That's not a quirk. That's a predator taking notes.